So he says, laws must be made according to the general laws of nature and without contradiction to any positive law of Scripture. Otherwise they are ill-made. This is correct. I agree with John Locke on this. But now look if Tom Mullens were to talk about that and say this idea is drawn directly from John Locke, I would agree. I'd have no quarrel with that. But look what he quotes from John Locke. I'm going to read what he's quoted right out of his book. A state also of equality wherein all the powers and jurisdiction is reciprocal, no one having more than another, there being nothing more evident than that creatures of the same species and rank, promiscuously born to all the same advantages of nature and use of the same faculties, should also be equal one amongst another without subordination or subjection. All he's saying is that they should be. But he doesn't state anything about where equal rights come from in this statement. There's nothing about it in there. He just talks about how they should be equal. Well, Tom Mullens just skips right over it. He continues on to talk about another topic in the next paragraph. Well, Tom, you've completely skipped the idea of where the Creator is coming from, but you state it clearly in here. But then look what he does in the next paragraph. This is where it gets really sick. He says, while rights are alluded to, he says, while the rights alluded to are endowed by their Creator, he says it's important to note that the founders did not specify who the Creator was. Tom, that is correct. I have to agree with you. They didn't specify which Creator it was. So, but they also did not specify anywhere in the Declaration that democracy is wrong. Now, you speak out in this book against democracy. I guess I'm talking to Tom directly here for just a moment. Well, let's just speak to the audience. It'll be easier for me. Because there's going to be a lot more people watching this than just Tom. In here, he spoke out against democracy. Well, how does Tom know that the Founder Fathers did not intend for democracy when it's not even mentioned in the Declaration of Independence? Well, he goes to the writings of the founders, like James Madison in, I believe it was Federalist Papers number 10. Don't quote me on that. I believe it's Federalist Papers number 10. He speaks out against democracy. He's got a long essay in there talking where democracies are just vile and they're destroyed so quickly. And Tom has a lot of quotes in here talking about that. Tom is absolutely correct. You go to their writings to find this. So how do you know what Creator they're talking about, Tom? Well, you go to their writings. I have thousands, literally thousands of examples here in their writings talking about it is the Christian God and specifically Jesus Christ. It is the Christian scriptures and the Christian Bible which they rely on. One of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, I even believe, wrote his own version of the Bible that he translated from the Greek text. I mean, he spent 25 years of his life doing this. A lot of these guys were Christians. The grand majority, most of them, there may have been a couple that may have been questionable. Maybe this person was a deist, maybe he wasn't, we don't know. But the grand majority, we're talking like 99% of their writings are Christian-based, out of the Christian Bible. And I can provide example after example of that. Here's what Tom Mullens says. Now, in light of what I've just told you, here's what he says. He says, too often, I'm reading from this right here, too often, those arguing for the ideas of our republic make the fatal mistake of basing the natural rights upon belief of not only in God. Now, stop right there. They're making a belief in God. Well, that's exactly what the founders did. Tom, if you just do a little research, it goes a long way. I trust me. Maybe you haven't done too much. I don't know. But certainly, before you write a book or write a statement like this, you ought to be at least required to read some of the founders' documents. Okay, not just pick out the ones that you may agree with or ones that the atheists really like or try to argue from. And generally, they always try to quote from little bitty sections here and take it out of context, which I've seen you do repeatedly, Tom. So we're going to go through this. He says, upon a belief not only in God, but specifically upon the Christian God. Do you guys see what he's doing? He's not attacking Buddhists, he's not attacking Jews, he's not attacking anybody else. He does not like the Christians and talking about Christianity in this. And he certainly will not quote any of the Founding Fathers talking about Christianity. He doesn't want to talk about that, he doesn't want to see it. For what reason, I don't know. Tom, I'm going to claim you ignorant on this one. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and just say you didn't know. Okay? Certainly, you need to go back and at the very least revise this book, if not retract this book. If you are unwilling to do that, in later segments, if anything you do, I'm going to have to tell you that you're lying about this. I'm gonna have to say that, because there would be no way around it. You would have to be lying, even if you're being willingly ignorant. Like, you know that there's something else out there, but you don't want to read it, and just keep believing what you believe, and then teaching that to other people. That's still lying, because it may be wrong, but you don't want to find out if it's wrong because you just like what you believe. I'm sorry, that's not, most people will reject. Anybody who's watching this, the average person who rejects finding the truth, generally there's some personal reason for it. The reason people reject the Bible is not really for any logical or scientific reason. The reason they reject that book is because it chaps their hide. It's because they don't like a "thus saith the Lord," and they would rather keep their wicked lifestyle and be able to justify it without God. That's the real reason. So, Tom Mullens here continues, and he says, while the founders were by no means ambivalent towards Christianity, now that's an understatement, Tom. They were very strong Christians, some of the strongest Christians I have ever known. And Tom continues and says, and in fact, most of them either practiced it or at least admired its teachings. That's an understatement as well. Especially when I don't even think Tom realizes most people don't even know the Treasury in Washington, D.C., including Capitol Hill, all that when it was being constructed, they were used as churches. I actually have letters from John Adams. I have quoted. I don't have them up here with me right now. If somebody wants those, send me an email or just send me a comment or something. I'll send them to you, or links where you can find them. About John Adams talking about how he attended the church services they would have at the Capitol. Okay, these people weren't just practicing it. I mean, this was a part of their daily lives, and many of them issued proclamations of fasting and thanksgiving and prayer. Christians today don't even do thanksgiving and prayer. These people were very devout Christians, very deep in their religion, and this is a complete fabrication and understatement, at the very least. He says, in fact, most of them either practice it or at least admire their teaching. He says, belief in Christianity or even in God is not necessary to support the argument made by the founders for natural right. Tom, I just demonstrated to you where that's completely wrong. You cannot argue at all that people are equal without being created equal. You can't even argue rights without arguing that there's a creator who made these rights. Because if rights don't come from God, where do they come from? You can't just say they're naturally there, because if they're naturally there, why are you worried about losing them? Obviously, they become privileges by someone else if they are not rights by God. And later on, you try to talk about rights, but you never really... guys, he never really, and I'll show you later, I'm probably going to have to end this segment pretty soon and pick up with it later. But he never really does cover the issue, or really define freedom or liberty in this, and I will demonstrate that later, probably in the second part. But he also never does define what rights are. Folks, they are called rights. I mean, when someone says, I have been wronged, what does that mean? Somebody has violated my rights. I have been wronged. Well, you have to know the difference between right and wrong to even know that. Tom Mullens never defines, he never even touches about right and wrong in this. And I've got to cover a couple more things in here because this is really on topic here. We're getting to this. He talks about the building blocks of freedom, that all people of all nations can accept this idea that transcends religion. Okay, you cannot transcend religion and talk about rights. You can't transcend religion and talk about liberty or talk about any of the things that are in the Declaration of Independence. It is first required of a creator. Because that's exactly why they mention the Creator first, because to have any kind of logical argument or any authority, you must claim the Creator first. Because if you don't, why would the founders, if they were, what did they do when they all signed this Declaration of Independence, it was written and signed, how many laws did they break from England? A lot of them. Why would you go and break all the laws of a nation unless you had some authority over them? You can't just say, I have authority and that's my opinion and I just claim authority because I say so. That is not going to gain any kind of movement, first of all, to build anything. But you say, hey, I've got rights by God that this person cannot take away. He's violating them. He's playing God. We need to take him down. That can gain a movement under a real principle. But claiming as your own opinion, the next person beside you may have, the New World Order has an opinion.